My mother lived grew up in the mountains west of Greeley. I was born in Greeley. I lived in Carr quite a bit, and then moved to Denver and went to school in Denver. And graduated. When I graduated from high school, I went right into the service. I had a low number on the draft thing, so I got out of it. But I was glad that they let me finish high school before I had to go in. I was a seaman first class, I believe, in the Navy Seabees construction battalion. I went overseas to Hawaii and Tinian and Okinawa, but I wasn't in any of the big battles there. I came a little bit later, which was fortunate for me. I worked in the office mainly, so I knew where everybody was and in our battalion and where they were assigned to go. Tinian was, well, all of the islands were cleaned off, no trees, no brush. Well, there was a little bit starting to grow again, because all the islands had been bombed and didn't have any trees or anything on them. Yeah, we built an airstrip on the island of Tinian, and B-29 bombers who bombed Japan took off from there. It was in Los Angeles. They had an area there where the servicemen would get out of the service, and that's where I landed. Ended up and I worked in the office there. Glenda, she was the Liberty Yeoman in that office, and I worked in there, and we got married, and we lived on El Molino. The kids all grew up there. I went to the University of Redlands and got my BA, and then went on and got my master's degree. I taught all of the primary grades at different times. Sometimes they would need an extra teacher in the lower grades, and there weren't enough students, so that they needed that many teachers in the upper grades. So I volunteered to go down to the primary grades, which was interesting, different. It would seem that it would be really, really easy to teach them, but there's you need to work at it. But I enjoyed it. I liked teaching the kids. It was fun. We tried to make it happy times all the time, so that they didn't mind, or didn't even know that they were what they were learning or anything. But it got through to them.
Children of Riverside National Cemetery, we're gathered here today to honor your loved one and friend. On behalf of our director and staff, we offer our most sincere condolences to you and your family. I will now turn it over to the honor team.
Good morning, family and friends. It's truly an honor and a privilege for us to be here to celebrate a life of a veteran, a Navy sailor, a true American hero. Today, full military honors will consist of the rifle volley, the signing of taps, and the folding and presentation of the national colors to you men. Rifles can be quite loud. You have sensitive hearing. The little kids, please cover your ears. During the signing of taps, if you serve on the military or you still currently serving, please render a final hand salute to our fallen sailor. Everybody else can participate by placing your right hand over your heart. At this moment, if you're able, please rise for military honor.
Ready? Run! Finish, man!
You may be seated. On behalf of the President of the United States, the United States Navy, I'm very grateful now. Please accept this flag as a symbol of appreciation for your loved one faithful. Detail, right face, fully. Forward, march.
Ma'am, on behalf of the President of the United States, Department of Veterans Affairs, and a grateful nation, I present to you this memorial certificate in your loved one's honor.
This is a tradition that goes back to 1972 with our grandma. And this is Ken, his dad, Jim's dad. It's the last of that generation. So we're going to sing this song. My sister Tammy, myself Tony, my cousin Ken, Jim in heaven, singing. Please join in on the law. Okay? All right, Ken? Here we go. This is for you, Ken. On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things, sand and hills and rings. And the first thing I met is a fly with a buzz in the sky with no clouds. And the heat was hot and the ground was dry. The air was full of sound. You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La 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 la. After 2 days in the desert sun, my skin began to turn red. After 3 days in the desert fun, I was looking at a riverbed. And the story is told of a river that flowed, made me sad and weak, it was dead. See, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La 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 After 9 days, I let the horse run free. The desert had turned to sea. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rings. And the ocean is a desert with its life underground, and the perfect disguise above. Under the seas lies a heart made of ground. Humans would get no love. You see, you've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La 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 la. Sing for Ken, everybody. La la la. Everybody join in. La 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 la. One more time. La 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 la. Ken.
Good morning, all. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the celebration for Kenneth Hemingway Smith. Let's read from the Gospel of John, chapter 14. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, also believe in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, you may be also. And whither I go, you know, and the way you know. Kenneth Hemingway Smith was born to Edgar and Ethel Smith on the 24th of March, 1925. He had an older brother, Gene, and was joined in life on that Tuesday in 1925 by a twin sister, Eleanor, who still lives in the Denver, Colorado area. Ken Smith passed in eternal rest on the 21st of June, 2018. When Ken and Eleanor were 2 to 3 years of age, their pair were picked up by local police as they were out searching for candy and were brought back home by law enforcement. It made front page news in the local newspaper. Young Ken loved riding his bicycle and listening to the big bands of the day, including Glenn Miller, and he especially enjoyed the hit song by Doris Day and the Les Brown Orchestra, Sentimental Journey. After Edgar passed, the Smiths moved to Denver, where they lived in the back of a house that the front of was a beauty parlor that Ethel worked in. As part of America's greatest generation, Ken Smith proudly served in the United States Navy during World War II, reaching the rank of yeoman second class before his honorable discharge in May of 1946. Ken helped build some of the airfields that we used to bomb Japan and lots of the Quonset huts that our troops lived in as they served in the Pacific Theater. Sometime before his discharge, Ken met Glenda Cornett, who was also yeoman second class as a clerk typist in the Waves, the women appointed for voluntary emergency services that served the Navy during the war. Ken and Glenda were married on the 7th of July, 1946 in Las Vegas. The couple first moved to Paris and lived in her grandfather's house. And during that time, Ken obtained his master's degree in teaching out of Redlands University, and he taught 4th through 6th grade. Glenda also became a teacher and taught 1st through 3rd grades. He taught for 30 years in the Riverside Unified School District, finishing his career as a vice principal at Castleville Elementary and as principal at Fremont Elementary. Ken and Glenda's union produced sons Kenneth and James. Kenny is with us today. James preceded Ken in death in 2007. The Smith boys gave Ken and Glenda 4 grandchildren: Trevor and his wife Amy, who live in Georgia; Tiffany and husband Christopher Hears of Kentucky; Lindsay and husband Kyle Carosa; Paige Smith; and 11 great-grandchildren. After Glenda passed in 1984, Ken began a 33-year companionship with Bernice Griffin and added to his family Bernice's daughter Jackie Hansen. Husband Jim passed in 2014. Adopted grandparents to Gary and Trish Evans. Great-grandpa to 8 more, and great-great-grandpa to 3 more. Hang on. As teachers, the Smiths normally had the summer off. During that time, Ken Smith became a lifeguard and later managed the city pool at Shamel Park. Then one summer, Ken went to an RV and boat show, and the next week he came home with an early 60s GMC pickup and camper. And from there, the Smith family went traveling. Ken loaded them and they traveled to such places as San Francisco, the 1962 World's Fair in Seattle, Yosemite, Yellowstone, Washington, D.C., and even New York City. While in New York City, Ken Smith was pulled over by a policeman, not for speeding, but the curious officer wanted to see the truck and camper because he'd never seen one before. Things start in California and head east, they say. Several years later, Ken went to another RV and boat show, came home with a boat, and the family then went to Lake Powell, Lake Havasu, Lake Oroville, where Ken learned and then taught his family and their friends how to water ski. Cousin Tony, when I'm done, will share some of those stories from Lake Oroville. Ken also enjoyed camping, golf, traveling, and going to Disneyland. As many of you can attest, living in Southern California, how many of you had relatives that would show up to use your place as a launching pad to visit the Magic Kingdom? Ken loved turtles and tortoises and had up to 9 at his house one time at 4758 El Molino in Riverside. As Ken related to me, they had one turtle one day. They looked out the door, and here comes a turtle ambling up the sidewalk. They opened the gate. The turtle made its way in. Some years later, they had more turtles. Turtles take time, you know. Ken and Kenny had their man's cave in the garage of their house and spent many an hour hanging out, building things together, talking, and it was also the hangout for a lot of the Smith boys' friends during that time period. Grandson Trevor's earliest memories with Grandpa Ken was trips to see the first space shuttle landings at Edwards Air Force Base. A lot of the other memories they share were spending time with them, swimming and shooting pool. Ken was a very patient person, not only as a teacher, but as a father. During the Smith brothers' teenage years, they had bands and would play gigs at the local junior high and high schools, and Ken would get them there and pick them up when the dance was over. For a short while after he retired from teaching, Ken had a Class A license, and when I first met him, he was driving a gravel truck or an asphalt truck with Ken hanging out with his son. After Glenda passed and Ken and Bernice hooked up, they continued their traveling as they went to Hawaii, Mexico, Lake Tahoe, and drove across the United States numerous times visiting family and friends along the way. They lived in Riverside, Redlands, and spent the last 20 plus years living in Palm Desert. Ken enjoyed taking friends and family to the Living Desert, and especially at Christmas time to see the lighted displays there. Ken was such a tough guy that he outlived his first pacemaker. And when I showed up at the hospital after he had the second one, where he was slowly slowing down, he was like, "Hey Gary, good to see you. Glad you're here." So, tough guy. He was such a talented guy, in that he seemed to know how to fix and build anything. And he helped me with many projects at my house. He was such a loving guy that, as you know, Ken, what was the first thing? That big smile on his face that he had. And now I'd like to introduce Cousin Tony to share some of those memories of Lake Oroville.
Thank you, Gary. That was absolutely wonderful. Well, Gary did a wonderful job explaining Uncle Ken's life beginning to end. It's a hard act to follow, Gary. That's a wonderful job. And everybody's here. We deeply love Ken. That's it. I've known him all my life, since I was born, and I've spent summers, many years with Cousin Ken, Brother Jim. And the theme, I think, for Ken today, I'm trying to find something that really meant a lot to Ken, Glenda, and I'd say the theme was water. Everything, Navy, son goes to the Navy, Glenda, Navy, seems to be water, so I wore all the blue shirt. Water skiing, ocean, we did all those things. And I'm sure Bernie felt that too with the Team flag, and then later on in his life, which was wonderful. So, I'll talk just very briefly, I know we're running for time. When I first came to, as a teenager, to Uncle Ken's house, 13-year-old at the time, growing up with Ken, we formed our first bands together. And his brother Jim was a musical prodigy. And Ken and Glenda had the camper, as Gary mentioned. We began our trek of going on water. And Ken taught us how to ski. And we went to Canyon Lake, where we would, harass all the teenage girls. That was a lot of fun. Ken and I would chase them around, and they would reject us. And that was a lot of fun. Ken, I would say, Ken was a person that enabled us, like Glenda did, to do things. He wasn't very talkative, but what he did was loud. He made sure everybody, as Glenda did, around him was having fun. That was what he did. He created the atmosphere, and nothing Uncle Ken enjoyed more than watching his kids, his nephews, nieces, whatever, have fun. And I can remember one particular story, now I'm going to leave it at that, Lake Oroville. We spent a lot of time together at Berry Creek. My parents owned a cabin up there. And of course, Glenda was my mom's sister. And Glenda was Ken. So we were up in Oroville, Berry Creek, and going water skiing on Lake Oroville constantly. And Ken and I had built these two little motorboats to ride on Lake Oroville. And Ken had found a way to get us down there to launch, and we went out for 3 days camping. And I will never forget coming back, seeing Ken, Glenda, everybody on the shore, waiting for us to come in. And as we're going in, kind of exaggerating the story a little bit, we're going on the motorboats, full speed ahead, 30 mile an hour, built these things ourselves, big engines on the back. Little Ken and I are going like this. Ken looks over at me, we realize this is the greatest time of our life. And there's Ken and there's Glenda, they're all there. We're coming in, this is our big moment, and we're bouncing, and the wakes are going, and we're way offshore, we're coming into shore, and little Ken's steering wheel breaks off. Oh no. I'll never forget it. And they're watching this. Ken looks at me, and I look at him, and he's doomed. He has no steering wheel. He's looking at me, and it's kind of like, oh well, see you later, cousin. And then this thing just went, and the gas cans and everything went flying. And of course, who pulled us out of the tree? Who comes out, saves us once again? Uncle, Dad, Ken. There you go. That was our uncle, his dad. Greatest, probably one of the greatest guys. Right there. Agreed? Yes. Greatest guys in the world, enabled us to have fun, love each other. Never one mad or bad word ever did I see him say. Always love and caring. So thank you, Uncle Ken, for giving me music, giving me water, teaching me to water skate with Jim and Ken. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Okay.
When you celebrate, when old memories come to mind, hear the echo of my laughter, and I'll be at your side. And when you celebrate, oh, smile a smile for me. Think of all the good times when you think of me.